When I was working hard and overtime at the company, my wife was enjoying herself in her lover's arms when I was carefully taking care of my pregnant wife. She was secretly seeking thrills with someone else. She thought she could keep her affair hidden from me forever. But an unexpected early return from work revealed a message. ISHOULDNT have seen Lisa. Is our son asleep? Finally, I was promoted after years of hard work. I became the department head today. The tedious tasks wouldn't be my responsibility anymore. I would have more time to watch Ethan grow and share the burden of managing our household after handing over my old duties. I could leave work early for once. A content smile appeared on my face as I thought of Sarah alone at home with our son. On my way home, I stopped by the florist to buy her favorite roses. Eager to share the good news when I arrived, I found Sarah asleep by Ethan's crib. Showing signs of fatigue, our son sat quietly in his stroller, playing with a toy truck. I placed the flowers aside and tiptoed over, about to lift her when her iPhone screen suddenly lit up with a notification. I knew her passcode, but we had always trusted each other and never checked each other's phones, yet somehow I found myself tapping the screen. The message read, "Sarah, what's our son doing now?" I froze, briefly wondering if I had sent it, and her phone was just slow to receive it. But the unfamiliar profile picture, contact name, and screen full of intimate chats shattered that foolish hope. Sarah and I met at university after 5 years of dating. We married soon after graduation. I was an orphan, but Sarah said she didn't care about my background or wealth, marrying me despite her family's objections. Feeling indebted, I vowed to work hard and give her a better life. That first year, I was consumed with work and neglected Sarah, resulting in the loss of our first child. Girl, it took 3 years before we welcomed Ethan. Knowing how difficult the pregnancy was on Sarah, I threw myself even deeper into work. I completed every task without complaint, covered for colleagues, skipped meals, and worked overtime due to overworking. I was hospitalized with a bleeding ulcer multiple times, all for the sake of hefty bonuses. My physical appearance suffered from years of overtime work and unhealthy eating habits. Far from my days as a best-looking college heartthrob now, I resembled more of a paunchy, middle-aged man looking at my sleeping wife. I forced myself to stay calm with trembling hands. I scrolled through her phone and made a startling discovery. There was an unfamiliar messaging app on her device, and it had only one contact labeled as "Dear Hubby." How ironic. Throughout our 8 years together, she had always referred to me as Damien. The times she called me hubby were few and far between, but they held significant value for me. One time was after our engagement. I had finally saved enough for a down payment and planned to buy a house near my office, which would serve as our marital home. However, Sarah disagreed. She and her family took turns trying to convince me otherwise. Carefully analyzing the pros and cons, in the end, I ended up buying the small, old apartment her parents had lived in for 20 years. Meanwhile, her parents used the money from selling me their place to buy a spacious new condo with a river view. At that time, Sarah nestled in my arms, sweetly calling me hubby. She said this apartment was in the best school district, ensuring our future children would receive an excellent education. As we planned our future together, my heart was filled with warmth and anticipation. I thought the old place wasn't so bad. It had character. It was just further from work, but I figured I'd work harder and buy a car to make the commute easier. The other time was shortly after her miscarriage. Her younger brother was getting married, and he needed $600,000 for the wedding. Her parents had spent all their money on their new apartment. She asked me to help cover her brother's wedding expenses. Still recovering, she lay pale-faced in bed, her big eyes misty with pleading. As she looked at me, she called me hubby in the gentlest voice I'd ever heard from her. Out of guilt and love for my wife, I kept quiet about pushing myself sick at work events. I took out all the bonus money it earned from that project and added it to my car savings, barely scraping together enough except for those 2 times. She always called me Damien with a cool detachment. I had always thought that because her parents favored her brother, she lacked security and struggled to express her feelings, loving in a reserved way. But it turns out she can express her feelings. After all her passionate messages with this darling hubby made me blush. If I weren't her legal spouse, I'd think this was such a happy family of 3. In the chat history my wife shared with another man, Ethan's first smile, first crawl, and first time calling someone Dada. These were precious moments of our son's growth that I had deeply regretted missing. My mind was in chaos as I looked at these photos. Now glancing at the well-behaved Ethan nearby, I realized the son I once thought looked just like me actually didn't resemble me at all. Children are very perceptive. Ethan noticed my gaze, which was so different from his usually doting father's. Even a bit frightening. His lips quivered, about to cry. Familiar with his moods, I quickly picked him up and held him close. Seeing Sarah's brow furrow, showing signs of waking, I hurriedly marked the messages as unread and put the phone back. "You're home," Sarah mumbled, rubbing her eyes. Seeing me holding Ethan, she quickly got up and took him from me. "You must be tired. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge if you want to eat." She had always been like this, very reluctant for me to have contact with Ethan. As if afraid, he might become closer to me. I used to think she was being considerate, not wanting me to deal with childcare after a hard day's work. I've already eaten, I'm a bit tired today. So I'll go rest now. I didn't know what expression to wear to face her and Ethan anymore.